The Declaration. Supreme Commander Kruvak stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Dominion, the flagship of the Vraxian Empire's vast armada. His 4 arms were clasped behind his back, his slate-gray skin reflecting the dim lighting of the bridge. The panoramic viewport before him displayed countless stars, all part of Vraxian territory, yet somehow still not enough. 3,000 years, he growled, his vocal sacs pulsating with each syllable. 3,000 years of restraint. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zethnar, approached cautiously. Everyone who had served under Kruvak knew that when the ridges along his spine began to glow purple, it was a warning sign that even the bravest warriors heeded. "Supreme Commander, the War Council awaits your presence," Zethnar said, lowering his head in deference. "The representatives from the Khan Collective, the Persine Conclave, and the Aurelian hierarchy have all arrived." Kruvak didn't turn. "And what of the humans? Have they responded to our ultimatum?" Zethnar hesitated, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly, a sign of nervousness among Vraxians. "They have, Supreme Commander. They sent a message that our translation matrix initially struggled with." Now Kruvak turned, his massive frame casting a shadow over his subordinate. "Explain." "When we processed the translation, sir, it simply read, 'Seriously. Whoa, good one, guys.'" Kruvak's upper left eye twitched violently. "They think we're joking. The Vraxian Empire doesn't joke. We conquered 19 star systems while their ancestors were still discovering how to create fire." He stomped across the deck, his heavy footfalls causing the reinforced metal to vibrate. The Galactic Coalition had maintained peace for 3 millennia, ever since the Accords of Proxima Centauri, a peace forced upon them by the humans and their inexplicable ability to make allies out of enemies. Do they think the destruction of our sacred temple of eternal light was some sort of accident? Kruvak snarled, baring his serrated teeth. "A human mining vessel accidentally converts our holiest site into a debris field, and they have the audacity to send us. What was it again? Seriously. Lol. Good one, guys," Zethnar repeated, visibly trembling. "And what does this lol translate to in proper galactic standard?" Zethnar swallowed hard. "Our linguistics department believes it to be an acronym for laughing out loud, sir. It's an expression of amusement." Kruvak's laugh, if you could call it that, sounded like stone grinding against metal. "They're amused, are they? They think this is funny." He leaned forward until his face was inches from Zethnar's. "We'll see who's laughing when we activate the Stellar Annihilator." A silence fell over the observation deck. "Sir, the Stellar Annihilator is still theoretical technology," Zethnar ventured, immediately regretting his words as Kruvak's upper right arm shot out and grabbed him by the throat. "Not anymore," Kruvak said, his voice deadly calm. "Our scientists have been working on it for the past century in secret, because someone," he tightened his grip, "needed to be ready for when the humans finally showed their true colors." He released Zethnar, who gasped for air. "The peace ends today, Sub-Commander. For 3,000 years, they'd had us dancing to their tune, making us believe we needed their friendship, their trade routes, their ridiculous entertainment broadcasts." Kruvak sneered. "No more. The Vraxian Empire reclaims its destiny today." Zethnar, still massaging his throat, nodded vigorously. "Yes, Supreme Commander. Shall I inform the War Council of your imminent arrival?" "Tell them," Kruvak said, his voice dropping to a menacing purr, "that the 3,000-year peace is over. And this time, no one will be laughing." As Zethnar scurried away, Kruvak turned back to the viewport, watching as the stars seemed to twinkle in response to his declaration. "Especially not the humans," he whispered to himself. Unaware of the gravity of the situation, across the galaxy in a modest office within the United Earth Defense Force headquarters in Geneva, Communications Officer Anya Chen was still chuckling at the pompous message they'd received from the Vraxians. "Hey, Marcus, come look at this," she called out between bursts of laughter. The Vraxians are threatening war again. Should we notify the Admiral? Captain Marcus Wells leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the holographic display. His weathered face cracked into a grin as he read the formal declaration of hostilities, filled with flowery Vraxian prose about reclaiming their rightful place in the galaxy and avenging their sacred temple. Third time this decade, isn't it? He mused, taking a sip of his coffee. They're really hung up on that mining accident. Did anyone explain to them that the pilot was literally having a heart attack when he crashed into their moon? 17 times, Anya replied, rolling her eyes. They refused to believe it wasn't deliberate. This time they're threatening to use something called a stellar annihilator. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's new. Usually, it's just the standard, we will crush you beneath our mighty heel stuff. He straightened up. Might as well forward it to Admiral Reyes. She enjoys their dramatic flair. The War Council chamber aboard the Eternal Dominion hummed with tension as representatives from the galaxy's most formidable powers took their seats around a massive holographic table. The room itself was designed to intimidate. Stark metallic walls adorned with trophies from conquered civilizations, atmospheric lighting that cast everyone in a blood-red glow, and seats deliberately made uncomfortable for non-Vraxian anatomies. Krvax strode in, his ceremonial armor clanking impressively with each step. The gathered aliens, a diverse collection of tentacles, exoskeletons, and appendages, immediately fell silent. Esteemed allies, Krvax began, though the word allies seemed to pain him physically. For too long, we have allowed the humans to dictate the terms of galactic peace. Today that ends. General Tazkor of the Khan Collective, a hulking insectoid with mandibles that could crush titanium, clicked in agreement. My warriors grow soft from inaction. They yearn for the glory of combat. As do mine, purred Ambassador Nyx Lyra of the Persine Conclave, her feline features betraying predatory anticipation. But the humans, their military capabilities are somewhat of a mystery. They've never fully displayed their arsenal during the peace years. Krvax gestured impatiently to Intelligence Director Mulvis, a gaunt, blue-skinned being whose species prided themselves on their information-gathering abilities. Director, brief our friends on what we know of human military technology. Mulvis activated the holographic display. Images of seemingly primitive human weapons, tanks, aircraft carriers, and missile systems rotated above the table. These are their most advanced weapons, Mulvis declared with a dismissive wave, based on our latest intelligence from approximately 500 Earth years ago. A murmur rippled through the council. 500 years. Nyx Lyra's tail twitched skeptically. That seems rather outdated. The humans are technologically stagnant, Mulvis assured her with absolute confidence. Their greatest advancement in the past millennium was something called social media. They spend most of their resources on entertainment, not warfare. The Aurelian representative, a gelatinous mass named Globnar, who communicated through color changes, pulsed a doubtful yellow. Our records indicate the humans were quite resourceful during the First Contact Wars. Globnar's translator intoned. Krvax slammed a fist on the table. That was 3,000 years ago. They'd grown complacent, soft. While we've been secretly developing the stellar annihilator, they've been watching something called cat videos. The council chamber erupted in what each species considered laughter, hisses, clicks, and in Globnar's case, rapid color cycling through pinks and purples. Their response to our formal grievance proves it, Krvax continued, activating a recording of the human transmission. The assembled alien leaders watched as a junior communications officer, barely containing their laughter, delivered the now infamous lol response. See, they don't take us seriously. Krvax's voice rose to a near shriek. General Tazkor's antennae quivered with rage. Unacceptable. We should strike immediately. And we shall, Krvax promised, bringing up a holographic display of Earth. Our combined fleets will converge here, at their homeworld. We'll show these hairless apes the consequences of their disrespect." As the council roared its approval, none noticed Intelligence Director Mulvis's slight hesitation, or the way his eyes lingered on a footnote in his data pad, a minor detail about human adaptability that had been omitted from the briefing. After all, why worry the council with trivialities when victory was so obviously assured? The Galactic Neutral Zone Space Station, Harmony Point, had hosted peace talks between warring species for millennia. Its impressive central chamber, a massive dome of transparent aluminum offering a breathtaking view of the surrounding nebula, had witnessed the signing of the Proxima Centauri Accords that established the 3,000-year peace. Today, it would witness that peace shatter. Kravax had insisted on delivering the declaration in person, a traditional honor among the Vraxians. Flanked by General Tazkor and Ambassador Nix Lyra, he marched down the station's main corridor, passing representatives from dozens of neutral species who scrambled to get out of their way. "Remember," Kravax hissed to his companions, "no matter what they say, we remain resolute. This is not a negotiation. This is us informing them of their doom." The massive doors to the chamber slid open. Inside, seated casually at the enormous round table, was a single human woman. No guards, no advisors, just her, sipping from a steaming mug that smelled offensively of roasted beans. "Ambassador Chen," Kravax intoned formally, using the customary greeting despite his hatred. "We come bearing the united will of the Vraxian Empire, the Khan Collective, the Persean Conclave, and the Aurelian Hierarchy." Lin Chen, Earth's senior diplomat for extraterrestrial affairs, looked up from her coffee with an expression of mild interest. At 63, she had spent nearly 4 decades navigating the complex waters of interstellar diplomacy, and very little surprised her anymore. "Supreme Commander Kravax," she replied, her voice calm and measured. "What a pleasant surprise. Please, all of you, take a seat. Would anyone care for some coffee? Or perhaps some Persean mint tea for Ambassador Nix Lyra? I know it's your favorite." Nix Lyra's ears flattened against her skull, embarrassed that her preference for human beverages was known. "We do not come for refreshments," Kravax growled, remaining standing. "We come to inform you that, as of this galactic standard hour, the Proxima Centauri Accords are null and void. The Vraxian Empire and its allies formally declare war on Earth and all human colonies." He slammed a crystalline data cube onto the table, which projected a holographic document detailing the grievances and formal declaration of hostilities. Ambassador Chen took another sip of her coffee, set down her mug, and picked up the cube, examining it with academic interest. "I see," she said finally, "and the specific grievance triggering this declaration would be the destruction of the Temple of Eternal Light." Kravax roared, his patience already wearing thin. "Your mining vessel destroyed our most sacred site, and your government had the audacity to claim it was an accident." "Because it was an accident," Chen replied gently. "The pilot had a massive coronary event. We've provided all medical records, flight logs, and even offered to rebuild your temple to exact specifications, with additional enhancements of your choosing." "Lies," spat Tazkor, his mandibles clicking furiously. "Humans are deceitful by nature." Chen sighed and set down the cube. "Supreme Commander, we've been through this several times already. But if you're determined to pursue this course of action, I should inform you that Earth has a policy regarding formal declarations of war." Kravax's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What policy?" "A 3-day waiting period," Chen said, as if explaining something to a child. "Standard procedure. Gives everyone time to cool down, reconsider, that sort of thing. After that, if you still wish to proceed, we will, of course, respond accordingly." "You dare to impose bureaucratic delays on the Vraxian Empire?" Kravax was nearly apoplectic. "We have assembled the largest battle fleet in galactic history. We possess the Stellar Annihilator, a weapon capable of reducing your sun to cosmic dust." At the mention of the Stellar Annihilator, Ambassador Chen's expression changed, not to fear, as Krivak had hoped, but to something that looked alarmingly like genuine interest. The Stellar Annihilator. You actually built one. For the first time, she looked impressed. Our physicists theorized about such a device centuries ago, but abandoned the concept due to quantum instability issues. How did you solve the Heisenberg compensator problem? Krivak was momentarily thrown off balance by the question. That is classified military information. Chen nodded understandingly. Of course. Well, as I said, 3-day waiting period. Standard protocol. She stood up, smoothing her simple blue diplomatic uniform. I'll transmit your declaration to Earth immediately. In the meantime, Harmony Point offers excellent accommodations if you wish to remain on station. We do not need accommodations. We need you to tremble before our might. Krivak was practically beside himself with rage. Chen offered a polite smile. I understand completely. But the 3-day period is non-negotiable, I'm afraid. Perhaps you could use the time to prepare your fleets. Before Krivak could respond with another outburst, she added, Oh, and Supreme Commander, a word of friendly advice. Before you commit to this path, you might want to review the complete historical archives of the First Contact Wars, particularly the Battle of Ta City. With that enigmatic comment, she collected her coffee mug and walked toward the exit. This isn't over, human. Krivak called after her. Ambassador Chen paused at the doorway and turned back, her expression suddenly serious. No, Supreme Commander. If you proceed with this declaration, it most certainly isn't over. Not by a long shot. The doors slid closed behind her, leaving the alien delegation in stunned silence. Nix Lear was the first to speak. What is the Battle of Ta City? I don't recall it from our historical briefings. Intelligence Director Mulvis, who had remained silent until now, cleared his throat uncomfortably. It was a minor skirmish during the early years of the First Contact Wars, hardly worth mentioning. Then why would she specifically reference it? General Tazkor demanded. Human psychological tactics. Krivak dismissed with a wave of his hand. They're trying to instill doubt. Prepare the fleets. In 3 days, we will show them the true meaning of war. As the delegation departed, Intelligence Director Mulvis lingered behind, his slender fingers quickly accessing the restricted archives on his personal device. What he found about the Battle of Ta City made his blood run cold. The response. Admiral Sophia Reyes stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of the approaching alien fleet. At 68, with silver hair cropped short and dark eyes that missed nothing, she had served in Earth's defense forces for over 4 decades. She'd never expected to see another interstellar war in her lifetime. They're really going through with it, she muttered, more to herself than to her assembled staff. 3,000 years of peace ended because of a mining accident. General Hiroshi Tanaka, commander of Earth's ground forces, studied the tactical display with a frown. The Vraxians always were sore losers. They'd never accepted that humans managed to fight them to a standstill during the First Contact Wars, when we had barely achieved interstellar travel. It's not just the Vraxians, pointed out Fleet Captain Jamal Ibrahim, gesturing to the display. They'd brought the Khan, the Persians, and even the Aurelians. That's 4 major powers against us. Against us and our allies, corrected Admiral Reyes. Speaking of which, what's the status of the Arcturian battle groups? A young lieutenant spoke up. The Arcturians have mobilized their fleet, Admiral. They'll rendezvous with our forces at the edge of the Sol system within 12 hours. The Syrian Confederation and the Protean Republic have also pledged support. Their advanced forces will arrive within 24 hours. Reyes nodded, a slight smile playing on her lips. The aliens have forgotten one crucial detail. During 3 millennia of peace, humans had made friends, powerful ones. And what of Project Lazarus? She asked, her voice dropping slightly. The room fell silent. Captain Ibrahim cleared his throat. The Lazarus vessels are ready. Admiral, all 20 of them. General Tanaka looked uncomfortable. Are we sure this is necessary? Once we activate Lazarus, there's no going back. No pretending we didn't have this technology all along. Admiral Rice's expression hardened. They're bringing a stellar annihilator to our doorstep, General. I think the time for pretending is over. She turned to her communications officer. Patch me through to Ambassador Chen. Lin Chen's face appeared on the main screen, calm as ever despite the looming crisis. Admiral, she greeted with a nod. I take it you've reviewed the formal declaration. I have. Quite the list of grievances they've assembled. Everything from the temple incident to complaints about human music being distressingly atonal. Rice shook her head. Their 3-day cooling-off period expires in 6 hours. Have they shown any signs of reconsidering? Quite the opposite. Supreme Commander Kravax has spent the time broadcasting increasingly grandiose threats across all diplomatic channels. Their intelligence director, Mulvis, did approach me privately, seemed quite interested in the Battle of Ta City. Rice raised an eyebrow. You mentioned Ta City to them. Bold move. Chen shrugged. I thought they might benefit from a history lesson. Did it work? On Mulvis, perhaps. The others remained convinced of their superiority. Chen's expression turned serious. Admiral, I fulfilled my diplomatic obligations. I've warned them, repeatedly and explicitly. Whatever happens next is on their heads. Reyes nodded gravely. Understood, Ambassador. Return to Earth at once. I have a feeling things are about to get complicated. After the transmission ended, Reyes turned to her staff. Initiate Protocol Omega. I want all civilian vessels recalled to their nearest safe harbors. Begin evacuation procedures for all orbital habitats, and send the authorization codes to activate Project Lazarus. As her officers rushed to comply, Captain Ibrahim lingered. The Vraxians still think we're using technology from 5 centuries ago, he said quietly. They're expecting a one-sided slaughter. Admiral Rice's lips curved into a grim smile. Then I suppose we're about to give them quite a surprise. Supreme Commander Kravax stood triumphantly on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion as his massive war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Behind him stretched the combined might of 4 galactic powers. 10,000 warships ranging from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, all armed to the teeth and eager for battle. Behold, he exclaimed, gesturing expansively at the viewscreen displaying their target. The blue-green jewel of Earth, seemingly defenseless against their approach. The homeworld of humanity, soon to be a cautionary tale for any who would mock the Vraxian Empire. His officers cheered, though Intelligence Director Mulvis remained noticeably silent, his eyes fixed on his monitoring equipment. Supreme Commander, Mulvis finally spoke, his voice tense. We're detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Kravax wigged dismissively. Primitive early warning systems, no doubt. They know we're coming. Let them tremble in fear as we approach. Sir, these aren't warning beacons. Mulvis's fingers danced across his console. They appear to be gateways of some kind. Artificial subspace ruptures. Before Kravax could respond, space itself seemed to tear open in dozens of locations around the alien armada. From each rift emerged sleek, obsidian vessels unlike anything the Vraxians had ever seen. Warships with no visible engines, weapons, or even seams in their construction. They moved with impossible grace, accelerating and changing direction in ways that defied conventional physics. What trickery is this? Kravax demanded, his confidence faltering for the first time. The answer came in the form of a transmission that automatically overrode the Eternal Dominion's communication systems. Admiral Sophia Reyes's stern face appeared on every screen throughout the Vraxian fleet. Attention, forces of the Vraxian Empire and allied powers. This is Admiral Reyes of Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space with clear hostile intent, violating the Proxima Centauri Accords. In accordance with galactic law, we demand your immediate withdrawal. Kravax snarled at the screen. We officially declare the accords null and void. Your time is over, human. Surrender now, and perhaps some of your species will be permitted to live as servants. Reyes's expression didn't change. I see. Then I am authorized to inform you that Earth and its allies will defend ourselves with all necessary force. What you are witnessing is merely the first layer of that defense. As if on cue, the strange black ships began to move, forming a complex three-dimensional pattern around the alien armada. You think a few hundred mysterious vessels will intimidate us? Kravax laughed. We have 10,000 ships, the greatest fleet ever assembled. For the first time, a hint of a smile crossed Admiral Rice's face. Those aren't warships, Commander Kravax. They're Lazarus vessels, automated drone platforms that create and maintain Einstein-Rosen bridges. Einstein? What? Kravax struggled with the unfamiliar term. Wormholes, Rice explained simply. Specifically, wormholes connected to the coronas of various stars throughout the galaxy. We found they make rather effective defensive barriers. As understanding dawned on Kravax's face, Rice continued, You have 1 minute to begin retreat. After that, the Lazarus vessels will activate their primary function, and your fleet will find itself surrounded by the equivalent of 20 stellar surfaces. Even your stellar annihilator won't help you then. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. She's bluffing, Kravax finally declared, though his voice lacked conviction. No species could harness that kind of power. It's technologically impossible. Sir, Mulvis interjected urgently, the Battle of Ta Siti that Ambassador Chen mentioned. I've reviewed the classified archives. During that battle, a single human vessel, badly damaged and facing certain destruction, somehow created a spatial anomaly that engulfed 3 Vraxian dreadnoughts. They vanished completely. Our ancestors dismissed it as a freak accident. But what if? Enough, Kravax roared. Prepare the stellar annihilator. Target Earth directly. We will not be intimidated by light shows and empty threats. On the lower decks of the Eternal Dominion, engineers frantically worked to bring the massive weapon online. The stellar annihilator, the size of a small moon and towed into position by specialized vessels, began to hum with power, its central chamber glowing with unnatural energy as it prepared to collapse Earth's sun into a hyperdense state that would trigger a catastrophic nova. But as the weapon reached 50% charge, the Lazarus vessels moved. Space writhed and twisted as 20 artificial wormholes simultaneously opened throughout the alien fleet. Through each portal poured the blinding light and devastating heat of stellar matter, carefully controlled and directed by the drone platforms. The effect was not total destruction, but precise, surgical chaos. Ships at the edges of the formation found their shields overwhelmed, their hulls superheated. The carefully orchestrated battle formations disintegrated as captains frantically maneuvered to escape the deadly radiation. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms blared as systems overloaded under the strain. The annihilator is destabilizing, shouted the weapons officer. The stellar radiation is interfering with the containment fields. Kravax stared in disbelief at the tactical displays, showing his magnificent fleet in disarray. This is impossible, he whispered. No species could wield such power. Mulvis, monitoring the human communications, looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, the humans are referring to this as a warning shot. They say the Lazarus vessels are operating at 10% capacity. Another transmission cut through the chaos, Admiral Rice appearing once more on their screens. Behind her stood representatives from a dozen alien species, including the Arcturians, the Syrians, and the Proteans, all races that had formed deep alliances with humanity over the centuries. Supreme Commander, Rice said, her voice calm but firm, your fleet is crippled, your weapon neutralized. We could destroy you entirely, but that's not our way. Never has been. We're offering you a chance to withdraw, all of you, and reconsider this path you've chosen. Kravax, His pride in tatters, but his survival instinct intact, managed to ask the question that burned in his mind. How? How did you develop such technology without our knowledge? For the first time, Admiral Rice smiled genuinely. Supreme Commander, did you really think we spent 3,000 years of peace just making cat videos? Humanity has never stopped exploring, innovating, pushing boundaries. The difference is, we chose to channel that energy into creation rather than destruction. She leaned forward slightly. The stellar annihilator you're so proud of. We theorized it millennia ago, then abandoned it as inefficient and unnecessarily destructive. While you were building bigger weapons, we were learning to bend space itself. And your allies? Kervax gestured to the diverse group behind her. You share this technology with them. We share everything with our friends, Rise replied simply. Knowledge, resources, culture. That's the part you never understood about humans, Commander. Our strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our connections, our ability to find common ground even with those who seem most alien to us. She straightened, her expression turning serious again. You have 1 hour to begin retreat. After that, we will conclude that you wish to continue hostilities, and we will respond accordingly. The choice, as always, is yours. The transmission ended, leaving Kervax to contemplate the ruins of his grand ambition. Orders, Supreme Commander, Zethnar asked tentatively. Kervax stared at the view screen, at the implacable black Lazarus vessels still surrounding his fleet, at the blue-green planet that had humbled him so thoroughly. Signal the retreat, he said finally, his voice hollow. All vessels, full withdrawal. As the battered alien fleet limped away from the Sol system, Intelligence Director Mulvis approached his commander. There is something else you should know, Supreme Commander, he said quietly. During the battle, I managed to access some unsecured human data transmissions. They're already discussing reconstruction assistance for the Temple of Eternal Light. They've been designing it since the original accident, regardless of our response. Kervax looked at him in disbelief. They were prepared to help us even as we declared war on them. Mulvis nodded. It appears, sir, that we have fundamentally misunderstood the humans all this time. As the stars stretched into lines around them, as they entered faster than light travel, Kervax considered a humbling thought. Perhaps the true power of humanity wasn't their ability to create wormholes or harness stellar energy. Perhaps it was something far more alien to the Vraxian mindset, the capacity to extend a hand in friendship, even to those who had declared themselves enemies. 3,000 years of peace, he murmured, echoing his earlier complaint but with new understanding. Perhaps that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Behind them, Earth continued its serene orbit around its sun, its people already returning to their daily lives, the brief threat of interstellar war becoming just another footnote in their long, complex history, a history marked not by conquest, but by connection, not by dominance, but by diversity. And somewhere in Geneva, Ambassador Lin Chen poured herself another cup of coffee and smiled. Peace, it seemed, would continue a while longer.